Hey potatoes, welcome to the ultimate recap of Doomsday. Today we're going back to the beginning of another legendary MCU character, the Prince, the Warrior, and the God himself, Thor Odinson. But before Thor becomes one of Earth's mightiest heroes, he's just an arrogant prince who thinks being powerful automatically makes him worthy of the throne. So let's go back to Thor and see how this God of Thunder learns what it actually means to be a hero. The movie actually starts on Earth. Jane Foster and her team are chasing a strange atmospheric phenomenon in the middle of New Mexico, and suddenly, boom! They hit a random guy standing in the road. And that random guy, Thor. Yeah, the God of Thunder's first experience on Earth is basically getting hit by a car. But before we understand how Thor ended up here, the movie takes us to Asgard. And this is where we meet Thor properly. He's the son of Odin, brother of Loki, and the future king of Asgard. And from the very beginning, one thing is obvious. This guy has an ego problem. Thor is powerful, fearless, and an incredible warrior, but he's also reckless, arrogant, and absolutely obsessed with proving himself. He's about to become king when frost giants enter Asgard. Instead of letting Odin handle the situation, Thor decides, let's go to Jotunheim and start some problems. And that's exactly what he does. Thor, Loki, and his friends travel to Jotunheim. At first it's supposed to be a confrontation, but Thor being Thor, the whole thing turns into a massive fight. And honestly, this is where the movie tells us exactly what Thor's problem is. He doesn't fight because he has to. He fights because he loves fighting. Odin sees this and completely loses it, because Thor may be ready to become a warrior, but he's nowhere near ready to become a king. So Odin takes away the one thing Thor thinks defines him, his power. He strips Thor of his abilities, enchants Mjölnir so only the worthy can wield it, and sends Thor to Earth. And now, the God of Thunder has become just another guy. Thor wakes up on Earth and meets Jane Foster, Darcy, and Eric Selvig. And this section is basically Thor discovering that humans have absolutely no idea who he is. He demands his hammer. He demands food. He doesn't understand coffee. And everyone around him is basically thinking, who is this crazy guy? But underneath the comedy, this is actually the most important part of Thor's journey. On Asgard, he's royalty. On Earth, he's nobody. And for the first time, Thor has to exist without his title, his powers, or his hammer. Meanwhile, Loki is back in Asgard, and this is where things get interesting. Loki discovers the truth about his origins. He's actually the son of Laufey, the frost giant king. And suddenly, all those years of living in Thor's shadow become much more complicated. Thor was always the warrior. Thor was always Odin's son. Thor was always going to be king. And Loki? He's always been the guy standing next to him. So Loki starts manipulating the situation. And this is where Tom Hiddleston absolutely kills it, because Loki isn't just angry, he's jealous, he's insecure, and most importantly, he's smart. Thor solves problems by punching them. Loki solves problems by manipulating everyone around him, and that difference makes their relationship one of the strongest parts of the movie. Back on Earth, Thor finds Mjölnir, and obviously, he tries to lift it. Nothing. He tries again. Still nothing. And this is where Thor finally understands something. Mjölnir isn't testing his muscles, it's testing his worthiness. And Thor isn't worthy, because being the strongest person in the room doesn't make you a hero. Then everything gets worse. Loki sends the destroyer to Earth. Thor has no powers, no hammer, no way to fight back. But when the destroyer attacks, Thor doesn't run. He stands between the machine and the people he cares about. And he's willing to sacrifice himself even though he knows he can't win. And that is the moment Thor finally changes. He stops fighting for glory. He starts fighting for others. Odin sees it. Mjölnir returns. And suddenly, the God of Thunder is back. Thor returns to Asgard and discovers Loki's actual plan. Loki wants to destroy Jotunheim, and Thor realizes that the only way to stop him is to destroy the Bifrost. But there's a catch. If Thor destroys the Bifrost, he loses his connection to Jane, and that's exactly what happens. Thor destroys the bridge and saves the frost giants from Loki's plan. Then we get the final confrontation between the two brothers. And this isn't really about who is stronger. It's about two brothers who have spent their entire lives fighting for Odin's approval. Thor still wants to save Loki. Loki believes Thor has taken everything away from him. And eventually, Loki falls into the void. Thor survives, but he can't return to Earth, which means he has to say goodbye to Jane. And then Marvel gives us one final tease. Nick Fury shows Eric Selvig the Tesseract. And while Selvig is looking at it, we discover that Loki is still alive, and apparently he has plans. So yeah, Loki isn't finished, and the MCU definitely isn't finished either. Verdict. So, how good is Thor? Honestly, this movie isn't perfect. The Earth portion can feel slower than the Asgard sections. Some of the comedy feels very early MCU, and the final battle definitely could have been bigger. But the character journey works. Thor starts the movie believing that power makes him worthy, and he ends the movie understanding that responsibility makes him worthy. Chris Hemsworth fits Thor perfectly. Tom Hiddleston makes Loki incredibly entertaining, and Marvel successfully introduces an entirely new world into the MCU. Asgard, the Bifrost, Mjölnir, the Nine Realms, and the complicated relationship between Thor and Loki. So for me, Thor gets 4 out of 5 potates. Not the best MCU movie, but definitely an important one, because now we have Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and we're getting closer to something much bigger. Outrow, the Avengers build-up, we've already watched Iron Man, we've seen the Incredible Hulk, we've watched Iron Man 2, and now Thor has entered the game, but there's still one final piece missing, Captain America. Once Steve Rogers joins the MCU, all the pieces are finally going to be on the board. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and then the Avengers. So potates, we're getting very, very close. The next movie takes us one step closer to the biggest MCU crossover we've seen so far. I'll see you in Captain America, and after that, we assemble.